my name is Zainab Dost. I'm from Uzbekistan. We're here to talk about a book called The Land of 40 Tribes, written by Farideh Heyat. I really enjoyed reading this book, which is very rich. It's very informative and it's very interesting. It touches upon the traditions, culture, gender relations and history of Central Asia, which is still a relatively unknown region. First of all, you're a British Iranian, so how come you became interested in Central Asia?
My parents come from Iranian Azerbaijan. I was born in Iran myself. I was very interested in the Turkic world, and I did a lot of research on Azerbaijan to start with and published my book Azeri Women in Transition. And then I started going further into Central Asia and doing research on the history and culture and society in Central Asia. Then I had the opportunity in 2002 to go to Kyrgyzstan to teach there in Bishkek at the American University, and I did a lot of traveling in Kyrgyzstan whilst I was there, and I then went to Uzbekistan also and did some research there and met Uzbek people and stayed with the Uzbek family. Learned a lot about Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan.
One of the revelations in your book is about the bride's kidnapping in Kyrgyzstan. Have you personally witnessed any?
Well, I didn't see anything with my own eyes, but I met a lot of people whose brothers had kidnapped their wives or whose mother had been kidnapped. Also, I went to Narin in Kyrgyzstan, which is in the remote area, it's near the Chinese border. And over there, it seemed that a lot of people, a lot of men who kidnapped girls took them to Narin to get married, and also a lot of kidnapping in Narin. So I met with an NGO in Narin that worked on this issue, and I met some girls there who had been kidnapped and managed to get away. And there are some very interesting stories in my book about this kidnapping affair. Some of them quite humorous and ironic, but there's also tragic cases. In fact, my whole interest in bride kidnapping started with an event that happened at the university. One of our students, her sister, was kidnapped and she attempted to escape, and as a consequence she was killed. When I told the girls that they should really try and find the kidnappers and have them prosecuted, etc., their reaction was, well, it's in our culture, and that really shocked me. And I thought, well, killing women, young women can't be, or getting them killed cannot be in your culture. So I then started doing the research, and that's how I found out a lot about it.
You write about two main countries in your book. It's Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. What were your impressions about Uzbekistan?
Uzbekistan, I think, is a sort of what I call magical country, because the history is so rich and the culture is so rich. The historic sites that you can visit in Samarkand and in Bukhara especially, but there are other places as well. They're so stunning, and they're really amazing places, which is why I guess there is also a lot more tourism there. But apart from the history and culture, people are very friendly, people are very nice, and the nature is very green. And the cities, and Tashkent also very interesting, the capital. So it has a lot to offer, really, and it's such a shame that both Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, like the rest of Central Asia, are so little known in the West. And one of my aims with this book was really to introduce Western people to Central Asia and to inform them more about this region, because I think it's a shame that so little is known about it. One of my friends who read the book who is actually from Chile and lives in South America, but after reading my book, wrote to me and said, reading your book really made me feel like I want to go and visit those places. You know, they seem so amazing.
You touch upon the male chauvinism in your book.
Unfortunately, this is an issue, violence against women is an issue which is not really taken very seriously by the regimes in those countries. Because, you know, those countries are run mostly by men, and so they're not that interested in discovering these things.
I think they used to pay a lot more attention to this during the Soviet period because it was all about equalizing men and women and giving them equal rights and responsibilities. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, these new countries had to seek their new identities, and they found them in their pre-Soviet past, which was obviously Islamic, and it was very patriarchal. That's why there was a revival of these values, which unfortunately also included maybe this subjugation of women to men, and that's why probably it kind of took this wrong turn. But again, with the new generation, maybe things will start changing.
The American NGOs, I think, are doing a good job. And in Kyrgyzstan, the American university is also a good source of sort of bringing in this more Western sort of liberal attitudes.
Sure, yeah.
But that is among minority. Even with a subject like bride kidnapping, I heard that it had increased in the post-Soviet era. With the younger generation, hopefully, and the educated people, of course, also with bride kidnapping, it was happening more in among sort of people from rural areas or not so well educated.
You speak about Wahhabi ideas making their way to the region, and obviously this will have an impact on the society as well.
Well, yes, I mean that was another thing that some people really were interested in and liked. That in the book I do talk about my experience of interviewing and visiting these radical Muslim women in the south of Kyrgyzstan, where radical Islam has spread a bit. And their sort of weird ideas and very patriarchal kind of culture that they are trying to kind of install in those areas. But in Uzbekistan, perhaps it's not so much because of the regime trying to clamp down on this kind of thing.
Yes, they do try to limit the spread of these ideas, but it would also depend on the region of Uzbekistan. So the valley, the Fergana Valley, was always more traditional, more religious than cities like Tashkent or even cities like Samarkand and Bukhara.
Well, I mean, south of Kyrgyzstan, where I went to Osh, for example, which is the second largest city, is also part of Fergana Valley. So that whole region, yes.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah, but hopefully with the use of internet and spread of sort of digital media, young people, I know that language is a barrier, but young people in those countries are very keen to learn English. So hopefully as their English language sort of develops and they are more able to access these internet and sort of films, Western films and so on, they would, these liberal ideas would spread.
In this book you do describe the beautiful landscape of Kyrgyzstan. Is the nature as beautiful as you describe it?
Well, I mean, I found it quite amazing, you know, anybody who hasn't been there, when they go there first time, of course they see the fantastic mountains. I mean, Kyrgyzstan is also known as the Switzerland of Central Asia because of the high mountains. It's a bit like the Alpine, the Alps, in fact. Most of the country, I don't know, 80% or how much, is covered with mountains. And the Tian Shan, which are known as heavenly mountains, celestial mountains, which borders China, is fantastic. And also there is Lake Isikul that I mentioned in the book, which is also a really great place with the most fantastic panoramic views of mountains surrounding the lake, and is quite stunning, quite amazing. I've also got a chapter in the book, actually, the legends of Manos, which is very interesting.
Did you find many things in common with Persian culture in Central Asia?
Yes, I mean that actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because as with my Iranian background, and because I'm both Turkish and Farsi speaker, which helped me a lot actually during travels in Uzbekistan, because the Samarkand and Bukhara are both Tajik, yes, majority Tajik population, which is a language very close to Farsi. And I was able to communicate with a lot of local people. What really surprised me in Kyrgyzstan in the first place was that in the Kyrgyz language there were so many words which were like originated from Farsi, like the names of the days or some other words. Also the celebration of Nowruz was very common in that region.
Yeah, it's very popular.
Yeah, and Nowruz is a Zoroastrian, actually, spring festival, which is the greatest sort of celebration in Iran. It's the new year. In Iran, the year starts with Nowruz, which is 20th or 21st of March. Plus, of course, the ancient history of Central Asia has got a lot in common with Iran. I mean, there was an era when Central Asia, during the Sassanid period,
it's part of the Persian Empire.
Yes, it was part of the Persian Empire, so the Persian influence is very marked there, and Zoroastrian influence. Usually these kind of connections between Iranian civilization and Central Asian civilization, you don't find it in other books about Central Asia. Most of them don't refer to these points, because they are either Western authors or some local authors. So in this sense, also the book, I think, is unique.
I also like the fact that it's written from a female perspective. Because there is a difference between male authors and female authors, and in your book I really like your irony and sarcasm and everything, as a woman. So I like that, yeah.
Well, the book actually focuses on women's lives, which is also a subject that is not discussed much and is not written about much. There are very few books that talk about women's lives in Central Asia. They mostly from male point of view.
Well, it's definitely an interesting historical period for Central Asia, so yeah, things could develop in their own unique way, hopefully for better than worse, but we'll just have to observe. And hopefully people who will read your book will then have more interest in exploring it.
Sure.
So this is the book, and we recommend it.